Hey everyone, welcome to yet another fun-filled week of Wotown Writers, week 7 I think it is, which is frightening on so many levels. And we are now halfway through the month of October. Can you believe November is almost here? I can't believe it. It's ridiculous. I am currently reading The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. So yeah, like I said, we are halfway through October, which means November is right around the corner, which means it is National Novel Writing Month time, and I am so excited, and I hope you guys are too. This will be my 7th year of participating in NaNoWriMo. I always love National Novel Writing Month. It is my Christmas, and that is saying something because Christmas is my absolute favorite holiday. To get through the month of November, because hopefully you guys will all be doing some writing, and I know I'm going to be doing some writing, and hopefully some of the other Wotown writers are going to be joining the NaNoWriMo fun as well. We are going to be spending the next few weeks and talking about our personal kind of writing processes of sorts. Yeah, we're just going to be kind of working through, and so you're going to, for me at least, I mean, you're going to basically get to see me write a novel while I'm doing it, because I'll be talking about, I'll hopefully be using some examples from what I'm doing for NaNoWriMo, because I do actually have an idea this year. I don't always have an idea this early on in October. I actually had an idea in September. It's been a long month. So this week we are talking about how we get our inspirations for stories. And this changes for me every single time I do something. So I thought it would be helpful to show you exactly what I was doing when I got the inspiration for the story that I'm working on currently. And this is what I was doing. I was taking a walk. Granted, when I was taking a walk, it was summer, not fall. I was walking down the street in the middle of summer, and one of the things that I was listening to was this thing called Smart Mouths, which is a podcast on iTunes. It's very funny. You should listen to it if you don't. So I was listening to Smart Mouths, and I was listening to an older episode of it because I was catching myself up with everything I'd missed because I started listening to it kind of late. And they were talking about the earthquake in Haiti. And see, I don't know exactly when it was during my walk, or if it was even that day that I first got the initial idea. But during my walk, there was something that they said that really struck a chord with me. They were talking about how people were going down and digging people out of the rubble, these media people, and all of these people that you wouldn't expect to be basically doing rescue missions. And then they also got to talking about how our generation was using their texting powers for good by texting into this number. And, if every time you texted, you donated $1 to Haiti, which was really cool. They're talking about, isn't it great that our community can do such a great thing? Our generation can take something that we're always teased about, and always rolls our eyes about, and do something for good with it. And all these things came together on this walk. I was walking down the street, this very street right here, and I got this really good idea. This really clear image of a character. And as I was walking, I started narrating the very first chapter to myself, probably with my lips moving, probably creeping out people like I'm doing right now as I'm making this video. And by the time I got to right here, where at the end of the street, I had this really good idea. I had this character just completely picked out. The idea for this character named Care, who didn't like the fact that her name was Care. She thought it was stupid that her parents were named her after an emotion. I'm going to ignore the cars driving past me, probably giving me weird looks right now, because they're a little less unnerving than the people who are outside working and giving me weird looks. So I'm just going to ignore the cars, because it's easier that way. I came up with this character, came up with this name, came up with this quirk about her name, and the fact that she hates that her name is Care. And it all sprouted from that one idea of a generation standing up for itself, and from this idea of a character whose name is Care and she doesn't like it. It's kind of ironic, actually, in the story, because she does care. Now, granted, a lot of times when I'm trying to come up with ideas, they don't actually come that easy, and I don't know what it was about Smart Mouths that really inspired me.
But Smart Mouse has continued to be my inspiration while writing that story, because that was what I was listening to when I initially got the inspiration. And there's actually, most of the story is this idea of kids being called to action by their peers via a podcast-like thing. And the funny thing is, maybe you would think that because I got the initial inspiration while I was walking around my own neighborhood, that this is the kind of environment in which my story is set. But it's not the case at all. Actually, my story is set in Denver, Colorado. I do not live in Denver, Colorado, nor do I know anything about Denver, Colorado, so I figured that one out. And it's set in, like, the downtown, so it's more of an urban setting than this suburban thing I got. By the time I finally got home, I was really, really excited about the story. Now, what I couldn't tell you is if I started writing it that day, because I can't remember. It's quite possible that I did not start writing it that day. I started writing it a couple days later.
So that's how I got my inspiration for my current project, which is what you heard a bit from last week. But how I got my inspiration for my NaNoWriMo novel that I am currently plotting and outlining characters and researching and all kinds of fun things. You know, it's one of those times that I'm not entirely sure how I got the inspiration. And that happens to me a lot. I was really lucky that I can place exactly when I got inspired for Call to Action, and I can place exactly what I was listening to, but that doesn't always happen to me. A lot of times I have absolutely no idea how ideas come to me. They just kind of do. For my first novel, I can tell you where I was when I started writing it, and other than that, I can't tell you what was being said around me that made me think of it. And it's kind of the same thing with my NaNoWriMo novel this year, which is currently, the working title for it is The Trial of the Radicals. It might change. I don't know how much I like that title. The only thing I can think of inspiration-wise for Trial of the Radicals is that I was looking through some of my old research for my first novel. I don't know why. It was probably when I was building my bookcase, and I just kind of was like, oh, look at this folder of stuff. And when I was researching that, because it was about a cult, I pretty much collected everything that had the word cult on it for research. And I bought this People magazine from March 23rd, 2009 in the bookstore of my college. And what the article talks about is that these kids were taken away because they thought that the compound was polygamist, and they thought that maybe there was child abuse going on, or all this like multitude of things. And I kind of got to thinking, what was it like for those kids to kind of go from this very extremist world to going to the kind of transitioning over to the 21st century? And I'm kind of thinking that's how I got the idea. My story's not about a cult, but it is about a group of people who have grown up in a very radical way that is misunderstood by their surroundings, by their neighbors, and they're taken away from their families and they have to adapt and assimilate for a short period of time. And I haven't really worked out all the ins and outs about it and everything, but that's, I think, how I got the inspiration for it. Sometimes podcasts are my inspiration, music can be my inspiration, things I read in magazines. Last year's NaNoWriMo novel for me was, I was watching the news and I was like, that's an interesting story. I wonder how that worked out. The other girls will be sharing their inspiration stories for their story inspirations throughout the rest of this week, and I'm personally really excited to learn how my friends get their story inspirations, because we're a really weird bunch. I will see you guys next week. See ya.
The downside of taking walks in the middle of November, well, actually it's October right now. I'm so sick of the campaign signs. Look, more campaign signs. Is the election over yet?